Obsession is a dangerous thing. It begins as a whisper in the mind, a fleeting thought that's easy to ignore. But as it grows, it consumes everything, transforming desire into fixation and intimacy into destruction. This is the story of a deadly infatuation, where a mother's inappropriate addiction to her daughter's boyfriend spiraled into tragedy. What should have been a bright future became a dark tale of betrayal, rage, and murder. 17-year-old Ethan Parker was poised for an exciting future. His easygoing nature and reliability helped him make friends, and his passion for cars led him to spend afternoons in the family garage, becoming the go-to for car troubles. Aspiring to open his own car repair shop, he saved everything he could from his part-time job. In his personal life, he and his high school girlfriend, Sarah Mitchell, were admired by classmates. Their relationship, which started in their sophomore year, was filled with dreams of adventure, travel, and possibly marriage after graduation, as they planned to move to the city for new opportunities, confident in their strong bond. Ethan's challenging upbringing shaped his character. After losing his parents, he was raised by his grandmother, taking on responsibilities beyond his years. Balancing school and work, he helped her with daily tasks, demonstrating impressive maturity. Despite his hardships, Ethan never complained and valued family above all, facing his duties with grace. He had a knack for finding positives in tough situations. With a bright future ahead and Sarah by his side, he felt unstoppable, believing they could overcome any challenge together. On the surface, Ethan's life looked perfect: a loving girlfriend, close friends, and bright plans for the future. But under that polished exterior, things were unraveling. While managing school, work, and his responsibilities at home, Ethan also carried a secret that weighed heavily on him: the unsettling attention of Sarah's mother, Victoria. What should have been the happiest time of his life was slowly being tainted by her inappropriate advances, turning his world into a ticking bomb of anxiety and dread. At first, it seemed harmless. Little compliments, lingering glances, playful comments that Ethan easily brushed off as jokes. He told himself Victoria was just being friendly, but over time, she became bolder. What began as light-hearted flirtation quickly escalated. Victoria found ways to be alone with him, drawing him into conversations that lingered too long, each moment increasingly uncomfortable. What Ethan once saw as innocent attention had shifted into manipulation. She tested his loyalty to Sarah, pushing boundaries and transforming every encounter into a secret he was forced to carry. Ethan's secret burden intensified daily, trapping him in a grim situation. Revealing the truth to Sarah would shatter her bond with her mother and jeopardize their relationship. Victoria's relentless intrusion turned her once alluring presence into a nightmare. As she sought to reclaim her lost youth through manipulation, Ethan's loving connection with Sarah began to fade under the weight of deceit and remorse, overshadowed by Victoria's threatening behavior. The night of the incident was stifling, the kind of oppressive summer heat that made the air feel heavy. Ethan sat in his room, trying to find some relief from both the weather and the emotional burden he carried. He had been pulling away from both Sarah and Victoria, desperate to untangle himself from the web of obsession that threatened to engulf him. But Victoria had reached her breaking point. Being pushed aside was something she couldn't bear. That night, she slipped into the house through an unlocked side door, moving quietly to avoid waking Ethan's grandmother, who slept just down the hall. In the faint glow of Ethan's room, the encounter was swift and fatal. As their hushed voices grew more intense, Victoria edged closer, holding a small syringe in her palm. Before Ethan could respond, she swiftly injected the needle into his neck, delivering a deadly dose of fentanyl. For a brief moment, his body stiffened and confusion filled his eyes. But soon his breathing slowed and his limbs grew heavy. The room became still as Ethan fell onto the bed, the drug rapidly taking control of his body. Victoria loomed over him, observing as life slipped away, while the soft sound of the air conditioner filled the silence, and Ethan's grandmother slept soundly down the hall, oblivious to the tragedy occurring just a few feet away. The following morning, Ethan's grandmother felt that something was off. The house was unusually silent. There were no footsteps or the usual sounds of Ethan going about his morning activities. When she called out for him, all she heard was silence. Growing more anxious, she walked to his room, her hands shaking as she opened the door. Inside, she found him lying still on the bed, his skin icy to the touch. Overcome with disbelief, she stumbled back, trying to reach a neighbor for assistance, her voice breaking as she struggled to grasp the reality of losing the boy who meant everything to her. When the first responders entered the house, a heavy silence filled the space, as if the walls mourned the tragedy. Ethan lay still on the bed, his eyes slightly open, caught between sleep and death. A discarded syringe on the floor hinted at betrayal. He had taken his last breath in the stillness of the night. The responders moved swiftly, but without urgency, knowing it was too late. The calm scene, devoid of blood, revealed a cold, calculated act, one driven not by anger, but by a chilling infatuation that ended in silence and heartbreak. Detective James Holloway realized right away that Ethan's room was not just another crime scene. The quiet atmosphere, the used syringe lying around, and the strange calmness all hinted at a tale of betrayal and obsession. This was not a random incident. It was a personal attack by someone closely connected to Ethan. Initially, the focus of the investigation fell on Ethan's girlfriend, Sarah, as neighbors reported hearing fights between them. Friends contributed to the chaos with mixed stories, pointing to either issues in their relationship or a possible outside danger. However, Holloway's careful examination soon revealed details that others missed. A collection of messages between Ethan and Victoria suggested a much darker reality, a hidden affair that turned the case into something more troubling than anyone had expected. Victoria Mitchell was arrested just hours after the crime as the sun began to rise over the peaceful neighborhood. She opened the door still wearing her robe, her expression a mix of defiance and shock, struggling to grasp how her hidden life had come to light so quickly. Even as the officers placed handcuffs on her, she maintained an unsettling calm. Sarah stood in the doorway, frozen in disbelief, realizing only then that Ethan was gone. The revelation crashed over her like a wave, and seeing her mother in handcuffs intensified the pain of losing the love of her life. The courtroom was heavy with tension, every seat filled as reporters quietly documented the proceedings. Ethan's grandmother sat in the front row, clutching a photo of her grandson with trembling hands, while Sarah, pale and emotionally drained, struggled to hold herself together. Each new revelation of her mother's deceit weighed heavily, and when it was her turn to testify, the emotional burden broke her, tears streaming down her face. The jury's swift verdict, guilty on all counts, landed with a crushing finality, offering justice but little solace. The silence was broken only by Sarah's quiet sobs, her heart shattered by the loss of Ethan and the betrayal of her mother. Ethan's grandmother exhaled slowly, her grief mixed with fragile closure, though no verdict could fill the void left by his absence. Victoria sat in silence, her once powerful demeanor now diminished to a hollow figure, stripped of her authority. The gavel's sound signaled the trial's conclusion, but the emotional wounds persisted. No sentence could undo the destruction caused by her all-consuming desire. As the courtroom cleared, the heaviness of the tragedy remained, a powerful reminder of how uncontrolled desire had led to the devastation and disrupted lives of all involved. The following months were filled with sorrow. After the trial, Sarah left town, burdened by betrayal and loss. As she tried to start anew, the emotional scars made it hard to move on. Victoria remained in prison, her appeals rejected, facing a life sentence. For the community, Ethan's death became a dark lesson about the dangers of unchecked obsession. The memory of the crime lingered, leaving deep wounds that time couldn't heal. The house where it happened stood quietly, a reminder of the tragedy and a warning about the treacherous outcomes of desire turned to delusion.